Hello everyone, Bugs here from the 1/6 Vibers. Today we are taking a look at the Hornet startup procedure in the A-18C Hornet in DCS World. Let's get started. So first we're going to go hit our battery, turn that on, I right click that, and now we're going to turn on our APU. Now since this is going to get pretty loud, we're going to go ahead and close our canopy. Now in real life, we would be doing our fire test here. We would right click for test A and test B. If your APU is running, this will shut down the APU. Now that our APU has this lovely little green light, we're going to go ahead and crank our right engine by right clicking on this switch right here. Now if we look on our IFE panel, we see our RPMs that are happening here, our temps, and our fuel flow. When this reaches around 20 to 25%, we're going to go ahead and hit our right engine start. On keyboard, that is right shift home by default. Now that we have our right engine started up, let's go ahead and turn on our MFDs. As well as you will hear the computer system doing its flight comms checks, making sure everything of the Betty is working, making sure she's fine and dandy and working. Next, after we turn on our MFDs and our HUD, we're going to go ahead and spool our left engine by left clicking on that switch. And we can go ahead and remove our stick by right clicking on the stick or left clicking on the stick here at the base, just so we have some more clear visibility of this panel right here. Again, once this reaches 20 to 25%, go ahead and hit our left engine start, or right alt and home on the keyboard. And here you'll see our temps rise just as the engine starts up, and we'll see our nozzles opening up. Now that we've got both engines up and running, let's go ahead and cycle our bleed air valves. And now we're going to hit our FCS reset page right here. This resets out all of our flight controls, making sure they're all working and none of them have. Here on the FCS page, you would see X's in the ones that aren't working. And you just want to clear that, and if you want to do that, you're going to have to hit your FCS reset down here. Next, we're going to get our INS started, so we're going to put our radar to standby. Since we are on the ground here at this island, we're going to turn our INS to ground alignment, GND, as well as hit our stored heading switch button right here on our HSI. Now, if you don't want this map here, this little background map, we can go and hit mode, the center button on the left panel, and then the center button again that says map. This will remove the map and just give you the top-down view with all the headings and map information that you need. Right there, you just heard our APU shut off automatically. You do not need to hit that switch. Next, we're going to start up our radios, and we're going to do that by hitting these little pins here. And then we can tune those channels by hitting our 232 if we want to go to channel 232, and then hit 000, or if you're in 232.5, we'll do 232.500, and that will make it 232.5. You can also, if it's too quiet on SRS, you can turn up your comm volume here, or if it's too loud, you can turn it down here. As well as turn up the brightness on this page if you're at nighttime and it's too bright and blinding you. Now here we can put our flaps up to auto. Our OBOGs to on. This is our oxygen onboard oxygen system. We can set our radar to operational. Now in real life here, they would be doing their FCS I-bit test, and they do that by holding FCS reset, and then this little switch right here above the KY58 panel, you go ahead and right click that, and you will see all the flight controls running their bit test system. Now in our 162nd Vipers missions, we have no failures, so you do not have to run this test or the fire test. It is just if you're a very realistic sim person. Note, when you're holding the FCS reset, it can get stuck like that in the down position, so you can just go ahead and click on it and it will bring it back to the top. Here we can uncage our standby ADI, put our dispenser to on or bypass. On will be using onboard programs from the EW, which will give us this option here once we get into the air. And bypass, you will be using your dispense switch aft and dispense switch forward to deploy either 2 flares per click or 1 chaff per click. We can set our ECM to REC or receive. This will exhibit a ECM pulse or whatever it does once it detects a lock. And also we can turn on our ALR 67 RWR by clicking this far right button right here. If we take a look back at our HSI, this middle AMPCD here, we can see that the quality is at 0.6, and our timing is timing how long our INS has been trying to start. Since it reads OK and it's at a very low number, we can go ahead and turn our INS to in-flight alignment or IFA. As of the October 2020 update, you will have to do this in order to prevent gyro drift of the Hornet. As well, now we can go ahead and arm our ejection seat. We can set our radar altimeter. I like to set mine around 350. We can set our altimeter here to radar. This will give us an accurate reading when we are low to the ground instead of barometric, which can give us an incorrect altitude measurement. Now we can turn on our exterior lights, position, formation, and our landing light. Since we are on an airfield like this, we are going to be putting our hook bypass to field, as well as leaving our anti-skid on. When we prep for takeoff, we're going to go ahead and put our flaps to half, as I did here. We ensure master arms safe and any master modes are off, which are default automatically when you are on the ground because of our weight on wheel sensors. We can go ahead, if it's a nice cold and crisp day outside, we can turn our engine anti-ice to on, and our pitot heat is going to be on auto, so we do not have to turn this to on. But if you want to, you can go ahead and turn that to on. It does not make a difference. If it's nighttime and you want to see your control areas and your DDIs a little bit better, we have console lights, instrument panel lights, floodlights, and our kneeboard chart light, as well as warning caution lights. Once we're done with all that, we can turn on our main systems on the UFC here. So we have IFF. We're going to hit that on off until this on comes up. Then we're going to hit our TAC-in. Oh, this also it helps prevent friendly fire. If other Hornets or aircraft have IFF turned on, this will give us on our SA page or our attack radar a nice green circle with a line to their heading. And just so we know that they're friendly and that they should not be shot down. Next, we can hit our TAC-in, turn that on, and if we are doing air-to-air refueling or we are doing any of yardsticks, we will have to put this to air-to-air mode, and either Yankee or X-ray depending on the channel of that TAC-in station. Next, we can do our ILS. Turn that on. This is used only on carriers. This will give us a nice cross in the center of our screen, center of our HUD, sorry. And with our velocity vector, we want to line up our velocity vector with the vertical and horizontal one to make sure we are on perfect glide slope. Note to turn on both TACAN and ILS, we will have to go to our HSI here and go ahead and turn these two on in order to see that on our heading tape here, as well as get that and get the ILS in this portion of the HUD. Next, we can turn on our data link to connect us to any fellow aircraft in the area, as well as AWACS to give us updates on our SA page, or Situal Awareness page. Once we are ready to taxi, we can go ahead and make sure we have everything set. We have our INS to in-flight alignment to prevent the gyro drift, our radar operational. If we have any FLIR pods, we can turn this to standby just to make sure it cools down. We have our anti-ice turned on depending on the conditions. We have our wings folded and locked. This pulling in and out will lock the wings. Notice how when I pulled it out, you heard this tone right here, and it gives us a warning telling us our wings are unlocked and are at risk of being broken. So we just want to lock those to make sure they don't fly off. Next, if we're using TACAN and we want to have an audio cue as well, we can turn up our TACAN volume on our volume. And if we have any RWR being noisy, we can go ahead and turn that down or up depending on how you like it. In the real aircraft, they would be testing their hooks, making sure they go up and down. Their launch bars here for when they're on carriers, just to make sure they can launch off a carrier when they land. As well as testing the refueling probe and speed brake right here. As we prepare to get ready to taxi, we can go ahead and put in our parking brake with a simple left click. And make sure we have takeoff trim set to make sure our trim is set for our load here. Note that when you're on a carrier, you will have to adjust the trim based on your weight. Alright, let's get ready to roll. Note how the nose wheel steering light here indicates that our nose wheel is allowed to turn. This may or may not be on depending on the startup. Generally, it will come on automatically. And if you are to hold down your nose wheel steering button or switch, you will notice you get nose wheel steering high. This will mean that your wheel can turn at a much higher rate than if it were as is right here. This is for when you're on a carrier, so you get a nice turning radius as to not bump any other aircraft. Now, as we make sure there's no incoming aircraft on our left and our right, we can go ahead and pull out on the taxiway following our lines here. Once we are ready to take off, we can double check our takeoff trim is set by clicking on the gray button on top of the rudder trim there. If there is crosswind, you may have to set additional rudder trim just to counteract the crosswinds. We make sure our nose wheel steering is on up until 70 or 80 knots, depending on your load, and that will lock the steering just to make sure we don't, drift across the runway. Now that we're ready here, we can go ahead and put on our brakes, and we can spool up. Generally in formation flight, you want to wait until the wheels just start to slip and then release the brakes and go full burner. And you want to try during your takeoff to stay as close to this center line as we possibly can. Once we hit around 140, 150, the plane will just want to lift up, and now we're off the ground. Once we're off the ground, you want to maintain a nice steady incline and not that much, not to go 30 degrees pitch. We're going to pull up our gears as soon as we land, take off, and set our flaps to auto. And notice how when I set the radar altimeter here to radar, we have it set exactly to what our altitude is here. Now if I were to turn this to barometric, we would see we would get a similar reading. It may just not be as accurate. That's it for today. I hope you guys take this information and use it wisely, and I hope you guys have a nice day.